In today's world, everyone, even children, have daily multiple internet connectivity, like social networking, banking, shopping, and a variety of other transactions. The experts tell us this is just the beginning of the huge potential that the internet has to impact the way we live our lives and conduct our businesses. How safe and secure is our confidential information? Today we discuss online security and privacy.
Brought to you by AdviceScene.com. Free legal answers from verified lawyers.
Every once in a while, we hear about major corporate databases being hacked and mass breaches of online security. We're told that identity theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. What can we do to protect ourselves from these risks? Today's guests are going to give us some valuable tips on how we can keep our online information secure and private. First, we have with us Omar Ha-Redeye, who is a lawyer with special expertise on the use of social media and technology platforms. And also joining us is Rosario, an online security consultant who helps corporations maintain the integrity of their databases and security systems. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here on the show.
Thank you for having us.
This is not a topic that gets a lot of coverage in the media unless there's been some problem. Yeah. And that being said, there's been a lot of problems lately, and I'm just curious as to why online security is such a big problem.
Well, it's a $1 trillion a year industry, and it's growing. Before, when you were a kid, early hacking was, 16-year-old kid ticked off at the world, because he didn't get a date for prom. Now it's someone who's got a high skill set and has a monetary, something he can gain from it.
But you've been quoted as saying that this is only going to get worse.
Yes.
Why?
Basically, law's not keeping up with technology.
The law?
The law.
I'm glad we have a lawyer here.
And the rate at which technology is accelerating, we're not compensating in the way that we control it in our daily activities. So basically, you're leaving a huge gap of for people to make mistakes and to put information and open accesses to certain things that they would have otherwise locked down under lock and key in a paper, on a piece of paper and in a drawer. Now it's out there in the open and everybody has access to it.
But the law can also only do so much. I think a big part of the reason why this is a growing problem is because people are not proactive in terms of identifying what the risks are and taking the necessary steps to make sure those actually don't turn into the types of situations that you've referred to.
But why is it so hard for these massive database keepers to keep it safe?
Well, it's not people, and it's not the technology per se. It's the processes that people are governed by. So if I create, let's say I have a system where I create information and I have information about people, legally I'm supposed to ensure the confidentiality, the integrity, the availability of that data.
And
but
that's what the public expects.
Yes. Like there's PIPA, for instance, that has those, due diligence and ensure that you make reasonable efforts. But the problem is consider this. An architect designs a house. He builds the house. You have the general contractor. He goes through and he assesses the house. But a demolitions expert has a different skill set. He understands the house, but he knows how to bring it down quicker. Different skill sets, different goals, and they're not connecting.
What about phone hacking? You're probably both aware there's been a lot of media coverage lately about hacking into people's cell phones. Is this a similar problem? Similar kind of skill set to hack?
It can be, but not necessarily. I think one of the best ways to avoid that from happening is making sure that when you're installing applications on your phone, you get it from either the reputable market, so iTunes if you're on an iPhone or an iPad, or the Android market if you're on an Android phone.
We are hearing a lot of warnings out there about identity theft. There's a real paranoia out there that didn't exist a few years ago. Can you explain to us what exactly is identity theft? And by that I mean, how does this happen?
Well, there's a lot of different ways in that it can happen. I think primarily it's getting key demographic information, primarily name in conjunction with date of birth or a social security number, and then using that information to either apply for a credit card and use that credit card in a fraudulent manner, or through a number of other different ways in which the criminal mind or the person who's involved in this activity can benefit from.
And how do they get this information about someone's identity, social insurance number, date of birth? Where do they get it from?
Well, there's a lot of different attack vectors, mostly social engineering, phishing attacks, things of that caliber. Creating a relationship or a perceived trust relationship with somebody. You receive an email an email that you think is from your friend that has a link that defers to, let's say, a website or a video. You click on that, and now that downloads a payload, an application that basically records your keys. It's called
But how did they get my email address?
That's basically out in the open. There's a lot of tools. Google is one of the, and it's called Google hacking, is one of the means of getting information about people. And you can cascade across whole organizations to get hundreds of emails that you can send and propagate in a campaign.
This is very scary, really, when you think about the implications of what can happen. If a person finds that they are a victim of identity theft, what should they do?
Well, there's in every state, in both the United States and Canada, there's organizations where you can record that information. In regards to credit, for instance, you can contact TransUnion, Equifax, and basically state that, hey, you may be a victim of identity theft. Contacting your bank agencies, your credit card agencies, directly and letting them know as well. Basically, know where your information is and make sure that they know that you're keeping tracks on it. If you're keeping a track on, let's say, your credit or your SIN number, you can even call the government and state, if someone opens up, let's say, utilities using my SIN or credit card, contact me. This is the phone number. And some credit card agencies will even ask for a password. So they'll call in, and then they'll basically, they'll say, this is the phone number that you can call. It's also on our website. And basically, you can call them directly and you don't want to have someone calling you saying, hey, I'm Visa. I was wondering, what's that, those last three keys on the back of your card? I just want to verify that that's the correct. That's a phishing scheme. That's someone attacking you.
So people should be vigilant about what information they're giving out, either by email and on the phone. Tell me, is it safe to do your banking online and to give your credit card number out there if you're buying something? Because I'm starting to feel a little antsy about it.
I get paid to break into systems, and
you what?
I do. That's my job. My job is to assess, a company's security stance from governance, regulatory, and compliance mandates perspective. When I break into systems, there's no such thing as a completely 100% secure system. You have to have a security that's relative to the business need or the function. You have to trust it. You have to trust online security.
Well, having just found out that I have a paid hacker sitting right next to me, I'm going to need a moment to rebuild my trust. So we're going to take a break. We will be right back. Welcome back to Family Matters. I have recomposed myself. I understand that the reason you are paid to hack into systems, Guy, is because you're testing the security of your clients' databases.
Yes, basically it's just like when you lock the door, you just check and jiggle the locks. That's my job, is basically to jiggle the locks in a network that protects financial data.
And so just to make it clear for everyone, the answer to your question about whether you should be giving your credit card number online and do your banking online is?
Yes, it's relatively safe if you do due diligence. For instance, making sure that you go to an HTTPS website as opposed to anything else. And just making sure what HTTPS means is it's a secure connection between you and that website. So you can use that secure connection with, let's say, social networking.
What about people that don't have their own computers and go to libraries or internet cafes and do financial transactions on public computers? Any problem?
I am very apprehensive about that.
I kind of thought you might be, being a lock jiggler.
Yeah, yes. Well, because it's easier to jiggle locks when you're not closer at home. You don't have control over the keys or the doors. So you're in a coffee shop, it's an open connection. And even if you're using HTTPS, those connections can be deciphered and intercepted at a later time.
What about social networking sites? It sounds like everybody's on Facebook, putting all kinds of family photos, information, personal information. Any comments about
Well,
the legal
certainly.
ramifications, I mean, I would think for a lawyer, there's lots of legal ramifications.
Facebook is being used extensively in legal proceedings these days. So, for example, if you look at family law cases where a court might be trying to determine what's in the best interest of a child, all of a sudden all these child pictures might be submitted to court. Or perhaps one side will take the Facebook photos of the other party, showing them doing activities that are perhaps reckless or dangerous or a partying lifestyle, all part of a campaign to try to demonstrate that this is not a suitable parent.
And it is admissible evidence, isn't it?
It is admissible evidence, yes.
We also see cases where there is harassment in the form of inappropriate commenting on the internet and on especially Facebook, and so restraining orders actually mention and restrict people from posting certain comments on Facebook. What about cyberbullying? We hear a growing concern about cyberbullying, Omar.
Cyberbullying is a serious concern. I guess bullying has always been around. You know, it was around when I was a kid. And so all that's happened, for you too?
We may have been bullied for different reasons, but we were both bullied.
And so
it made us who we are today, right?
Yeah. And so all that's happened is a lot of that behavior now has been taken online. There are differences, of course, because now you can have the individual who may have been the person who was bullied because of their physical stature, etc., can now be the bullier because there's a role reversal. It's not based on necessarily the physical size or strength. But
what is cyberbullying?
Cyberbullying is simply using the online media, so it could be Facebook, it could be other forums, to basically intimidate or harass other individuals. Now, it could be a colleague, it could be a peer, sometimes it's even teachers. We're seeing teachers who are being targeted by groups of students, calling them all kinds of nasty names or even untrue allegations, and the educators in this circumstances really just don't know how to respond.
But wouldn't this be grounds for a defamation action?
It can be. So are you going to be the one to start a defamation action against a bunch of 8-year-olds? Probably not. The 8-year-olds are going to laugh and they might get suspended, might have some sort of discipline.
I mean, don't parents have a responsibility to monitor their children's use of the internet?
Oh, yes. And there's...
For a whole lot of reasons?
More than you know. Most people don't think. Most people feel that why would anybody attack me, or why would anybody attack my children, or just the computer as a whole? And it's just because it's a launch point. It's a pivot point for other launches and other attacks. But from people stealing or getting into a system, like he was mentioning in regards to online bullying, you have that. You're anonymous. You're basically, no one can touch you. So for a family member, a parent, what they could do is they can go to like download.com, for instance, and there's some security.
Download.com.
Simple. Download.com.
And what's that?
It's basically just it's a website for software based on the type of platform you have, whether it's Windows, Mac, etc. And what you can do is there are these little checklists and these guides for someone who has, whose technical aptitude isn't very high. That's fine. You just go ahead, click on it, and read the guides. They give recommendations on software. And what's really nice is you don't need to know a lot about the security or the software as well, because peers like you and I would make comments on it, as well as editors made reviews. You would make reviews on that particular software, so you could rate it. And what's nice is it's spyware free. So what you're downloading from is already sanitized and clean before it comes to your system.
And that being said, I think there's only so much that we can do in terms of controlling the activities of children. A lot of kids these days have cell phones with data plans on it, and parents are going to have a very tough time controlling what kids are doing on their phones, whether it's in school or outside of the house. So I think the primary approach should be an educational role and a discussion and a dialogue with kids about the concerns that are here, the privacy concerns, the safety concerns, and try to work with them. I think it's very much of a cooperative role.
And not just educational, but supervision. I mean, if your children are bullying others, or perhaps getting involved in websites that have predators on them, there's huge consequences to this. This can be very dangerous. I wonder whether parents understand how much supervision they need to exercise over adolescents and teenagers who are communicating with God knows who.
Well, the kids have to help educate the parents as well. I mean, the parents are never going to be able to know all the new technologies and applications and platforms that are coming out. But if there is a discussion and a dialogue, then the parents can hopefully identify where the risks exist.
Now, Guy, you have been quoted as saying that protecting yourself is really all about peace of mind. What did you mean by that?
Well, there's only so much. You don't buy a titanium vault for your fuzzy slippers. Security has to be.
How did you know I had fuzzy slippers?
You seem the type, really. But really, you want to have security that's related to what's important to you. So before you even start considering the security piece, you need to start considering what's important to you. For my family, if the whole house was to burn down, the only thing, other than the cat and the family, of course, that's important to me are the family pictures. I can lose everything else, that's fine. But those family pictures, those are priceless to me. So you basically identify what's most important to you, and then you assign security based off of its importance in your life.
Well, that is a very good place for us to take a pause. When we come back, I'm going to be asking our guests about how you can protect your passwords. We'll be right back after this message. Please stay tuned. We are back here at Family Matters discussing online security and privacy. I want to ask my expert guests about passwords. What are the rules of thumb that we need to know?
At least 8 characters long, lowercase, uppercase, special characters like quotation marks, question mark, exclamation mark, and make sure it's not a word or phrase that would be in a dictionary, because that's how most passwords are cracked, either via keylogger or dictionary.
That's a lot to remember. Can you use the same password for all the different websites you go to?
No, please not. No, because if one gets compromised, you basically have everything compromised.
So you're recommending that everybody has a different password for every single website they go to, and that the passwords should contain upper and lowercase letters, use numbers and punctuation. How is a person supposed to remember each password for each website? I mean, I'm not a complicated person, but I've probably got 10.
There are programs and applications that help you remember those.
Are they trustworthy?
Well, what do you think, Guy?
Yes. I feel that doing the due diligence of having a program that collects all of your passwords and the accounts, stores them, encrypts them, and locks them down with a password is probably your best bet.
But you've talked about hacking. If I give all my password information, my bank accounts, to some company, some security online service, how do I know that's not going to get hacked?
Well, you can't really know that nothing's going to get hacked or anything's going to get hacked, but I trust open source software because the code is there for you to review. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can take the word of other security professionals and the online community.
But you're the lock jiggler. You make it your business to test these systems, but you're telling us that it is safe to use a password security provider company.
Yeah.
I think it's relatively safe.
Yeah, I was about to say, safety is relative. If you have enough time, you can break into anything. You want to equate safety to its use. If you try to lock down even the smallest piece of information with the highest level of security, you'll never be able to live your life.
At the same time, we can't pretend that any of these softwares or programs are going to make anybody invincible. We've seen the WikiLeaks phenomena, for example, and we can only expect this to increase. And the difference is going to be now we're going to find WikiLeaks phenomena with private industries. So it's going to happen. There are going to be data breaches. There is going to be information that's leaked. The only alternative is not to do anything at all, to cut off all electricity and not do anything. We live in an electronic era. So for me, the better alternative is simply to educate ourselves about what the risks are, try to identify them, and take whatever reasonable measures we can to address those risks.
Well said.
Are Macs as safe as they used to be?
No. I mean, they were notorious for being these virus-proof platforms, but I think that's changed.
Yeah, it's changed for a number of reasons, but bottom line is where the people are, where the money is, that's where hackers will go. And I want to also quote, not hackers, but crackers, bad hackers, basically.
You mean there's different categories of hackers?
Yeah.
Well, what's a bad hacker? One that gets caught?
No. Well, that, yes. A bad hacker is
I'm
also...
a judge. To me, if they get caught, that means they
hacking,
weren't just bad, they got caught.
hacking has a whole community. There's black hat hackers, also known as crackers, the bad guys. There's the gray hats who kind of skirt the line, and then white hat hackers who basically try to protect systems and such. But the term hacker actually came from a model train company, and the term hacker was a sign of respect for someone who could hack a piece of code or program apart and put it back together to make it run better.
So does anybody hack the hacker?
Yeah, all the time.
Really?
That's part of the thrill for, I think, the black hat ones at least. It's sort of a game of cat and mouse, and for some people it can be
black
fun.
hat, it's more for money. Gray hat's more for
it can be a blend.
Yeah. I can't wait to rent the video on this one. Tell me something. Do you have any tips at all for small businesses, for law firms, on how they can protect their information?
There's a lot of free software out there that actively does what I do, but automates it, and you don't have to have a high technical ability or some hacking ability at all. It's point and click. One I really recommend is Rapid7.
Rapid7.
Rapid7. Just Google Rapid7. There's a tool that's free called Nexpose, and basically you install it on your computer, and you point it to whatever you want to scan, and it actively identifies vulnerabilities and then tells you in point form how to fix it. It's awesome. Totally rocks.
That being said, I'll also emphasize that for smaller firms and smaller businesses, there's probably a greater need to outsource this expertise because they're not going to be able to do this in-house. The very large firms may have a large enough IT staff where they can actually address these risks, but for the smaller businesses, they might need to get help.
But this must be very expensive. Do you mind me asking, Guy, what's the going rate for a lock jiggler?
It depends on their technical ability.
On the size of the lock.
And the size of the lock. But just to
give us a ballpark. If I were running a small business and I had confidential information, what can this cost?
You can have a PCI audit, which is a payment card industry audit, a security audit, between $2,000 to $90,000. And that's just for one certification. And that's for once a year. And that's only one of a multitude of different certifications that say, are you secure? So that doesn't really get you anything. It just says, hey, are you doing the bare minimum in security? Compliance does not mean security.
Which is why I think you have to do a risk assessment, and depending on your industry, you have to look at what the risks are and how much money you want to be able to invest in something like this.
Yeah, just like at your home.
Well, I have to say that you've certainly opened my eyes. I hope that the viewing audience has really taken note of the need to supervise your children, make sure that your information that's confidential is secure and private. I want to thank my guests for being here. Thank you so much for your expertise. From everyone here at Family Matters, thank you for watching. See you next time.